can't drink milk, but as long as it's got caffeine in it, I'm happy. This is number 2, so and it should get me going before I start cutting up all this paper. So yeah, this is my space until I get the mural up. My other studio has just been knocked down for apartments. I only need a place to cut, and then I'm on site doing my work, so I don't feel like I need at the moment a traditional sort of studio space. My proposal for doing a mural in Redfern around the time of Anzac Day, around the time of the Coloured Diggers March, the idea at least has been really well received. So that's been great, because I just didn't know, as a relative outsider, I grew up in Redfern, but and I've got a couple of contacts there and I've done a couple of projects, but as a relative outsider, I didn't know how my idea would be received. But, you know, a lot of them just kept mentioning that, you know, it doesn't matter who you are doing these types of projects, it's all going to help in the reconciliation efforts between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. So that really made me motivated to keep going, you know, to push this project forward across the line. I've basically just, you know, superimposed the image onto the building using Photoshop, and just made it a little bit translucent so it looks a bit more realistic with, you know, the window and the street sign and whatnot, and just to give me an idea of just the scale of it. And you can see the person there, it's like doesn't even come up to his knee. You know, I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm pretty blissfully ignorant to all this, because this is the first time I've done large scale wheat paste actually on a building. And that blissful ignorance is helping me, because if I knew how big my to-do list has already grown to, and I still have to get it printed. Apparently I have to get it like 3 levels of permission from council, from the South Australian Museum, from the relatives. I'm still getting advice from 2 different elders. If there's one motivation, it's the reaction from the Indigenous community already, who's saying, keep doing what you're doing. And for me, that's really important. And with street art, I think that's the medium that I'm going to send the message on. So I just want to get that and see what it looks like in the backyard. I mean, it's massive. It's like as big as me. Yeah, that's incredible. It's like, you know, that image is taken from something like A5. It's like that big, and then it's blown up. Once you see it from a distance, it reads as good as the photograph. Just looking at his face, it just immediately, you know, it reminds me that this is a real person just about to go off to war. Like, what's going through his mind? He's already standing out from his other colleagues, and being Aboriginal, and, you know, is he going to make it? Has he heard about the horrors yet? Or is he just, you know, idealistic, you know, fighting for country? My mind boggles at, like, what must be going through his mind.
In the lead up to Anzac Day, 7 News has uncovered the discrimination faced by our Indigenous soldiers.
The earliest Aboriginal soldiers might not have been fighting for Queen, but they were fighting for country, their country. At least 100 were killed in the First World War. After returning from World War I, they were banned from having a beer with the mates they fought alongside, excluded from soldier housing settlement plans, refused treatment for physical injuries and deep psychological scarring.
Hello, can I help you?
Hi, I was just looking for a book on your catalogue called Narrandjeri Anzacs, and I was just wondering if I could borrow that.
Well, we don't normally loan, so what was it called?
Narrandjeri Anzacs.
Okay, because it's a book, you would view it in the State Reference Library on lower ground 2.
I came across this poem called Black Anzac by Cecil Fisher. It was basically written in commemoration of Aboriginal soldiers who fought overseas for Australia, but when they returned weren't necessarily recognised for their services. The poem inspired me to research more, and I came across this book called Narrandjeri Anzacs by Doreen Cartanieri. It was basically about the story of 21 Aboriginal soldiers who served in World War I from this tiny country town in South Australia. The first image that I turn to in this book is of Alfred Cameron Jr. with these really piercing eyes. I've seen the book online, but this is the first time actually seeing the book. I've seen the image of Alpha, but the great thing is now I can read his story. And there's all these other stories that haven't been told as well. It's a really interesting time producing work in the streets, in the street art world. There's so many different mediums that you could get involved with. There's so many different characters out there that are producing work, and they're not coming from just that traditional background of bombing and tagging. They're coming from fine art backgrounds. They're coming from having a day job. And what's interesting as well is it's now being legitimatized in the eyes of cities, clients, businesses who see it as a powerful medium to tell a story, or it's just a legitimate art form.
So yeah, I mean, I started writing graffiti when I was 13. At that time, like, everything kind of centered around, I guess, more kind of hardcore aspects of graffiti culture. Like train bombing was a really big part of like the Brisbane graffiti scene at that time. This is like early 2000s. I enrolled in art school when I was probably, in my early 20s, and started doing oil paintings and kind of expanding through that. But my graffiti practice and my arts practice were very separate. So it's kind of like a natural process, a natural evolution for me. It took about 10 years to kind of like really develop where I was going. Gonna like finish them by hand, so quite a complicated image for the screen printers to use. Just doing like some highlights and lowlights in paintbrush. I was just playing around with different compositions, and this is something that just kind of came to me, why certain compositions or certain layouts kind of speak to you. It's a long process, when you first start out, you just kind of like, you want to make pictures, and then the next challenge is making them about something. And then the next challenge is about communicating that something with the public. For me, it's important that the work's about something. Otherwise, I mean, what are you doing it for?
When I grew up painting graffiti, I was just basically doing it because I wanted to create something to look cool. I wanted to create, whether it be a tag or a piece or whatever, I just wanted it to look awesome. And I still apply that rule to what I do today. I really want to make every painting I do just look cool. But when I started painting these large-scale portraits, it sort of opened up this whole new avenue and whole new sort of reason to why I was painting. There's been a lot of different things that have come out in the past in terms of how to deal with graffiti and all that kind of thing, but it's normally, and actually it always is, very hardline towards graffiti and tagging and anything that's done like that, and then very welcoming and very relaxed to things that they consider street art, which is, I think, a ridiculous thing that happens because it shouldn't be like that. I mean, for me, for example, I came from a graffiti tagging history, and only now, because I'm painting portraits, is it easier for me to get permission for me to do what I do. The difference and changes that it makes within communities and environments is something that I've never experienced before. I used to just put up a tag, and now I'm putting up these big large-scale portraits of Aboriginals or Tibetans or important stuff that for me sort of really has a strong impact on the community.
So I'm on my way to go meet Pastor Ray Minnicon, a guy I've known for the last couple of years. He's a community elder and activist in Redfern who's the co-founder of this Colour Diggers March. I just want to show him my project and see what he thinks about it, especially because the march that he's a co-founder of will go directly past where the mural is going to be installed at on Anzac Day. The Colour Diggers March is separate because it specifically wants to acknowledge and commemorate the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander servicemen and women who fought overseas for Australia.
Actually, there's something I want to show you.
Yeah.
It's very, very special. Look, see, over here, there's a very special tree.
Yeah.
And here in this particular area of Sydney, this used to be black wattle forest through here. But this one tree here on this particular church ground here at St John's, it's a scarred tree. And what that means is that our people used the bark out of this particular tree either to make a shield or to make maybe a coolamon for their children. But that tree has been here before the invasion, before 1788. And so it's very special to me, it's very special to our people, and I'm so thankful that's here on this particular spot. You know, we call it the Scarred Tree Ministry here because we're dealing with stolen generations, we're dealing with mums who've had their children taken from them, we're dealing with, you know, lots of issues of homelessness and poverty and all those kind of matters.
I've got this mural planned at the block in Redfern, and I just thought it'd make sense that I time it right with Anzac Day. But also I was reading about what you do, and with the Colour Diggers March, that there's a separate march after the main march in the city in Redfern. And I just thought it'd be appropriate to get this up by then. So, you know, what are your thoughts on it?
Let me have a look at it. Mate, that is absolutely spectacular. It's beautiful. It actually fits into everything that we want to do. Because it's not only about, you know, the Colour Digger March in here, but it also fits into our national story of what we want to do for all of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander diggers in terms of getting them recognition, bringing out what they have achieved in the war efforts from the Boer War all the way through. We want to give them the honour due to them. They haven't been recognised appropriately, in my opinion, in this country.
And I'd be honoured if this could, you know, we could somehow align the Colour Diggers March with putting this up.
Oh, most definitely. Look, if you can put that up on the old Redfern Aboriginal Housing Company's wall there, I would be honoured. I think our community would more than be honoured. And I think this old digger here, this Aboriginal digger here from South Australia would be more than honoured too. Because, you know, when they took them overseas, they actually had to come through Sydney to be taken overseas. So he might have went down to the block there and met some of his mob.
Full circle.
And he comes full circle and honours them in that particular way, and honours our community in that particular way. So this is just absolutely fantastic.
Redfern's always had one of the highest concentrations of Aboriginal populations living in any other major city in Australia. This started in the 1920s and 30s when Aboriginals first came in the area from the country looking for jobs at the local railway. And it wasn't until 1967 that Aboriginals were finally recognised as full citizens with equal rights in Australia. From the 70s onwards, Redfern became a hotbed of protest and activism fighting for greater civil rights. People from all around the world have since come to Redfern to stand in solidarity with their cause. And it was at Redfern Park in 1992 that Prime Minister Paul Keating was the first to acknowledge these harsh truths of Australia's past.
It begins, I think, with an act of recognition. Recognition that it was we who did the dispossessing. We took the traditional lands and smashed the traditional way of life. We brought the diseases and the alcohol. We committed the murders. We took the children from their mothers. We practiced discrimination and exclusion. It was our ignorance and our prejudice and our failure to imagine that these things could be done to us.
Australia had federated only 14 years before World War I. It was a new nation, yet to be tested in any international sense, and yet to forge a national identity. With defence forces not fully formed, Australia was ill prepared to fight a war. Her defence thinking lay in reliance on the might of Britain. As long as Britannia ruled the waves, Australia would be secure. When World War I broke out, Australia reacted with enthusiasm in a wave of patriotism and loyalty to Britain.
If the old country is at war, so are we.
20,000 men were offered by the government to fight for Britain. Yet, under Australian law, the government had no powers to enforce men to fight a war that was overseas. All men would have to be volunteers.
I think we have a duty to tell the story about Indigenous service for two reasons. Firstly, it happened, but secondly, because the experience of Indigenous servicemen was quite unique. They were fighting for an empire which only a generation or two earlier had invaded their country, killed their people, taken their cultural capital. They weren't citizens in either the First World War or the Second World War. They were considered as part of the flora and fauna, yet they went and fought under the flag of that empire. And I think the reasons why they did it are really interesting. They're quite different to the reasons why a lot of white blokes did it. The record will say that they often talked about this commitment to serving country, which has a different connotation for them and different meaning altogether to serving king and country and empire. I think we should commemorate them as quite distinct from the white guys they served with, for the very reason that their experience was so unique. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how when they were in the first and second imperial forces, particularly the first one, you know, they received no special treatment, and it was the first time that they were, you know, had a truly egalitarian, equal experience. But really, they weren't equal at all. They were still not citizens. They faced terrible racial discrimination before they went in. Once again, when they came out the other end, they faced the same thing. Nothing changed for them. So that's why I think, you know, they deserve to be commemorated, you know, as a group, as a distinct group, rather than as, you know, part of the amorphous imperial force.
Indigenous servicemen, eh?
It is.
Yes, good idea.
It's going up on Monday next week, so Anzac Day.
So there's like all these videos of like how to make wheat paste, and what I've essentially, the commonality is like they all sell it to you that wheat paste is like this super simple traditional way of like gluing, but everyone's got their own mix. But I think the thing that a lot of them don't say is that you should also use a sealant of some sort, so I need to go research that. I mean, no one says this lasts forever, but it's obvious that some last, you know, longer than others, but I think there's a lot of environmental factors. But you know, essentially it looks really simple. It's just like, you know, flour, water, different ratios, everyone's got their own opinion.
To start off with, both of us thought that we'd run a couple of tests using existing inkjet equipment that we had access to, and just to see what would happen, and we failed pretty quickly. The test that you did, yeah, the prints actually, the ink ran off the wall on the first rain, so, but with the existing inkjet printer that we used to perform the test, the paper wasn't strong enough, it wasn't durable enough in an outdoor environment, and the ink system just ran straight off the paper as soon as it rained. So
this is basically an example of what not to do when wheat pasting. Got the sample printed with my printer guy, put it up, torrential rain the next day, but you know, I'd seen it wheat pasted before in rain and it totally lasted, and I came back the next day and the whole image is washed off. And that's where I realised I had to print with a laser jet, and I put this one up.
When we determined that inkjet wasn't the way to go, we just sat down and had a coffee and said, look, just let's have a think about what we're doing here. And at that moment, Hugh got an email from another artist in America who had a lot of experience with wheat paste installations and said, you're going down the wrong direction. And we both sort of realised that, okay, we have to start looking at some different technology here and maybe go down the large format laser route and see if that works. And that's where the second part of the journey began.
So when I finally put up the correctly printed image, I was a bit worried that two things, the texture of the wall was going to rip the paper, and all these inaccuracies and stuff are going to show up in the image. But then when I looked at the image from far off, all those inaccuracies disappear because the scale of the artwork is so large, and it also, you can't even peel it off the wall, and I was worried that it was going to fall off the wall, but you know, you can't even get your nail under the paper, and that's where I sort of knew it was going to last.
The street art world is much more complex than it was in the 1980s, and we have fine artists and screenwriters as well as the old school hip-hop graph writers working in the public domain. And I think that because there's a greater variety of art in the streets, it's more able to speak to the diversity that exists in the community as well, and so they're more accepting of it as a movement.
Street art comes from graffiti practice. But a lot of the practitioners of street art now don't come from graffiti. You know, they come from architecture, they come from design, they come from more formal art worlds. But people like, you know, Finton, he has run a parallel path down formal art worlds and informal graffiti worlds. And suddenly had a moment where he thought they go together and there's no reason to keep them apart.
People that aren't really into graffiti and street art are finding it more accessible because the imagery associated with street art and stenciling is not abstract lettering. Therefore, you get a lot more outside funding coming in, and they can have much more bigger projects.
Like being professional, it gives me the opportunity to kind of work on larger and more interesting projects anyway. So the reality is, I think for it to evolve or to go further, I think we did need like financial backing. Do you know what I mean? To work on larger, more interesting projects, we needed to make money. I personally don't have a problem with that. A lot of like Puritans will yell like keep it real, but I think that's kind of like, I don't know, I kind of laugh at that as well.
I'm not gonna lie, the last 2 days have been great. Like, to finally have that obscure idea and mock-up on my phone from that image in that book that was inspired by reading a poem, finally up on a building 2.5 stories high. It's a it's a moment of relief that it's finally up. And then looking through these photos of people stopping and taking an interest in the mural, like, is it paint? Is it glue? Is it paper? Asking questions, or is that an Aboriginal soldier? I didn't even know that they served. That's amazing because, you know, I was too busy just installing it, and to see that art, public art, street art in the streets, whatever you want to call it, has that power to stop someone in their tracks, ask questions, or just take an interest. It's no cliche, it works. When the moons align, it works. And then the icing on cake on top of that is, you know, my friend just tipped me off yesterday that some image that someone shared has since gone viral online. It's been shared and viewed tens of thousands of times, and there's hundreds of comments online, like paragraph long comments. They've just got an opinion, they're engaged, they want to know more. That, for me, is the most interesting thing about the project, the reaction from the community. And I think when I can finally share this prominently on Anzac Day, as the Coloured Diggers March just walks around that corner and down that hill towards the Aboriginal flag, that for me is going to be probably going to be on par with finally getting the mural up.
The spirit of Anzac is one of our truly unifying national legends. It gathers strength from year to year because it expresses something to every Australian, something that is beyond mere words, for it defines what we imagine our best selves to be. In all of Australia's wars, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people served bravely and displayed a special love of country. Every Australian soldier loves this country, but the original owners of this land love it in a way and with a depth that language probably cannot express. There were Aboriginal trackers in the Boer War. Later, in World War I, up to 800 Aboriginal men fought, and nearly a third of them were killed or wounded. Those men fought for a nation that did not even fully recognise their rights and status as human beings, let alone citizens. Yet their love of land went ahead of any flag or crown, and they went forth as proud warriors. That makes their unselfishness and sacrifice even more remarkable.
Together, we remember and honour them. God of our dreaming, God of today, help us never to forget, as all the people of Australia become aware of the contribution of our Aboriginal people and the Torres Strait Islanders, may they be remembered with dignity and pride.
To see all those young men in their ceremonial dress doing Indigenous dance, playing stick, playing didge, acknowledging our history is what they're doing in a very wonderful way. And to share that history and to share that culture with so many non-Indigenous Australians, I think is important, because now other people are starting to notice that there's so much more in our Indigenous culture that we need to share.
I'm a long-time Redfern resident, so I know the area very well, so that when I saw it for the first time just recently, you know, I thought, wow, and I thought that's terrific. And of course, as we came in that march and turning the corner there, it was just so appropriate. It was just such a wonderful, strong statement about our black diggers.
I think the best street art is just powerfully subversive. It strikes a spark that lights a fire in the consciousness. Not everyone wants to go to a gallery. Street art is there for everyone, and it's confronting, and it asks vital questions when it's done properly.
Street art was a text-based movement in the beginning, and now it has become about the image. Social media is about the image. It sparks your interest. Who is that guy? Why was he fighting in the war? Am I interested to go and find out more about it?
You know, it's inviting us into not just talk about it, but to be in that space, to have a discussion about how these older discourses fit in with contemporary Indigenous politics. So I see this work as being sort of implicitly political, not just in its characterisation and form, but in its placement. I think it's absolutely integral.
I've discovered from doing this project that art can be an empowering tool to control a certain narrative. And one of those people whose art practice I find most inspiring and that achieves this is my friend Tony Albert. His work comments upon the contemporary Indigenous experience in Australia. His art is bold and timely.
The whole footprint of Sydney is actually built on like Aboriginal walking tracks, the way in which Aboriginal people utilise the city. One of the first things I did when I arrived in Sydney is done like the bus tour where you've got the headphones in, and I just couldn't believe that, you know, I had done the whole tour and not once was there mention of anything Aboriginal, the significance of any of the sites that we're going to. I was fortunate enough to know from my own education the attachment of Aboriginal framework, but that just, nothing.
Two of your works stand out, Brothers and Once Upon a Time. I don't know if you necessarily wanted to be controversial, but the types of issues that you bring up, and you're very proudly, and you have the, you know, you back yourself, you back your opinion. You know, some of your works might be interpreted as controversial.
Well, there's a great saying in this country that ignorance is bliss, and I really kind of find that we suffer with this cultural amnesia in Australia. It's much easier to ignore it than to actually confront it. And when you do confront these things, they are quite shocking. They're very hard to deal with. There's a healing that comes involved when you actually choose to take this on, because it's a terrible history that we live in here in this country that's still completely unacknowledged. For me, there's also a big difference between being controversial and confrontational. I look at them as confrontational, but not controversial. This is historical fact that I'm dealing with, so it's not controversial at all. You know, people existed in this country prior to colonisation. If people think that's controversial, then I think they're a bit crazy. What we're not used to in this country is understanding that, studying it, being educated on it, and that's kind of what I push forward. I think the greatest gift we can give our children is historical truth.
After catching up with Tony, it's really motivated me to keep using my art as a platform to engage with the public and contribute to the broader conversation. I'm optimistic about where my journey will take me from here. So I'm just about to call Peter and Meryl, who are the most direct relatives of Alfred Cameron Jr. from a little town outside of Meningie, like population 800 in South Australia. And they gave me the permission to use the image in the mural. They don't even have the internet, so they haven't even really seen an image of the mural yet.
Afternoon.
Peter, it's Hugh who did the mural. How you going?
Not too bad.
I was thinking, I don't know if you've seen a picture of the mural yet, but I've been thinking that might be a good idea for me to come down myself and just to meet you in person, and maybe it'd be an opportunity at some point in the future to do another mural of Alfred Cameron Jr., maybe of other photos that you guys might have, and put him in country, you know? Like, would you guys maybe be open for that?
Yeah.
I'll just buy a ticket and come down and see you.
Yeah, by all means, you're quite welcome.
All right, great. We'll chat soon.
All right then, yeah. Thank you for everything. And good to wait to see you come down here.
Yeah, I can't wait either.
All right, mate.
Cheers. See ya.
Yep, see ya.
Welcome to country. Nangai, cow. Thank you, bless you.
We just like to know what pushed you to that, what you intend doing. about Alfred Cameron.
What I wanted to do with the mural, the whole motivation of doing it, was that I came across this poem, Black Anzac, and it touched on the fact that Aboriginal Anzacs hadn't been recognised before. I'd never heard about them at school during studies of World War I and World War II. General Australian society doesn't really know about the contribution of Aboriginals to all the wars that Australia's fought in, and I wanted to tell this part of Australian history.
You picked the right time to do all this because of nearly 100 years.
Exactly.
And they have got to be recognised for what they went through, and I'm glad that you're doing it. With Aboriginals, where are they from? Who they are. They got to be proud of who they are and love themselves and walk tall. Like our Anzacs in the war. They did walk tall to go and fight for our country.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a marvellous thing.
It's just mind-blowing to me.
He's guarding all that area up there. He's proud. You can see the way he's standing. Night time does him just. That is one of the photos.
That's the original image,
That's the original image. And that was one that was left in the house and bullet holes straight through the middle of it.
Far out. What does it look like on the back? Oh my gosh, it's just gone straight through.
Yeah.
So did you get this reprinted, or this is like the original photo?
This is the original.
Wow. So what's this photo of?
Well, that's at Kanatar, which is near the canal in Egypt. And I think they called those horses whalers, that they used to keep all the horses in big yards and use them out of there, sort of thing.
So it's with the light horse then?
Yeah, light horse brigade, yeah.
That's Alfred's from his uniform?
Yeah. That was one of the badges that he used to wear on his arm. Up here. That's Alf Junior, about 1893.
It's amazing how he's standing almost the same as he is probably 20 years later, just with that proud chest and those eyes.
This is the place where Alfred Cameron Jr. grew up after leaving Ralcon, where he was born in his younger years.
Do you remember coming to this property here when you were...
That is correct, yes, we did. As a kid, Mum used to bring us over here.
It's the only building in the southern hemisphere that was built by Aboriginal stonemasons, and it's a big part of history around this area.
Definitely. It's something that needs to be preserved.
Yeah, exactly.
Alfred Cameron, as you know, he's the one that you made the big photo of. And these are all the Indigenous ones who went and fought in the war. And as you know, we met one of the great sons of Rigney, who died over there, you know.
Three of them.
Three of them.
Two of them died and one came back.
Yeah, but no, it's ironic that we have only put this up in the last couple of months, straight opposite where Alf Cameron was born.
And Alfred Cameron's the first one on the list.
On the list, yeah. Well, Alf Cameron Jr. This is where he was born, down this way. But this is the iconic church, which is on the $50 note, with Great Unipen, who was a relative. And with Alf Cameron, well, they had to come down here to be born because it wasn't allowed in the hospitals.
So to be born in the mission?
Yeah. He was born in that little dwelling over there.
Oh yeah?
Little hospital.
And that was the midwifery there?
Yeah, yeah.
I never would have thought
I would actually be, 3 hours south of Adelaide in Meningie and meeting the direct relatives of Alfred Cameron Jr., who I did the mural of. And I've heard more about Alfred's story and about where he grew up. What's been confirmed by the trip is, yes, there was a level of discrimination. Stories about whole clans being just amalgamated into a single mission, and then a lot of the time the history's been wiped from a lot of these groups, but there's still pockets of people who have information. That's where I feel like my role is, to keep telling those stories that I'm being told by the few people that still have these stories. So I think by doing this final series of artworks of Alfred Cameron on the family's property, where he was born, where his clan's traditionally from, for me it's a great closing chapter for my series of artworks about him. I think most importantly, Alfred's going to be looking down and he'll be pretty pleased with it too.
So spending some time down in Meningie with the direct relatives of Alfred, who a couple of months ago I didn't even know existed, was a really special moment for this whole project. I found out all these stories about where he grew up and about his mob. And every time I heard a story about Alfred, I heard another story about another Aboriginal serviceman from that surrounding area. And I began to think, instead of just putting Alfred in country in a future mural, how can I maybe incorporate other soldiers into that mix as well? What I'm planning to do next month is I really want to acknowledge all those soldiers in that book. Are you happy for me to include that image in the mural? Awesome. I'm basically just going through all that book. Like the South Australian Museum wouldn't give out anyone's direct contacts. Oh, you've got his photo as well. But I need these terms and conditions covered.
I'll get your phone number so I can contact you.
Yeah, great, okay. I really want people to know that this project is bigger than just one person, and that there's a lot of Indigenous service people that haven't been properly acknowledged in the past.
Usually I just kind of dive in and just do it, man. I try not to think about it too much. As much as I hate to quote Banksy, it's like, like the thing that he said, is like easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission.
I always wanted Peter and Meryl to see the mural before it wore down. So this week they're actually coming from Meningie all the way up to Sydney and visiting Redfern for the first time.
No, that is marvellous. It is marvellous.
He's worn down a bit, but he's
But
still there.
He's still there, that's for sure. To see my great uncle standing up there very tall and very proud, looking over everyone, I feel real honoured. I don't know much about Sydney, but out in the sticks where we come from, yes, people are proud of what's happening in a large town like this. His spirit is still around with us. I know that for a fact.
Just from the reaction of those three ladies that came past, of how it's affecting other people in the community to think about this story, and everyone's just been really positive about it.
It's one thing that I had to see. I've heard you speak about it a lot. I've seen it on photos, but I had to personally come here and see it ourselves. I feel really honoured, to see him standing up there tall and proud. That's what I feel.
I've been really humbled by how generous Peter's been in revealing his family history to me. And I saw that there would be a good opportunity to possibly reveal something to Peter that he doesn't already know about the experience of being an Aboriginal and serving in World War I by going down to Canberra and visiting the Australian War Memorial.
So is this your first time in Canberra, or have you been to the Australian War Memorial before?
No, we haven't. It's very interesting seeing the place and coming to the War Memorial.
There's a lot of history here, and I guess there's a lot of big decisions made about the nation here, so it's got a lot of significance, of course.
Oh, yes.
I even heard from Gary, the guy who's going to be giving us the tour today, that AWM is the most visited monument in Australia.
Oh, right.
Yeah, which is quite phenomenal. All the school kids and the, ex-service people and families and whatnot who have come through here.
That's very interesting.
When the war broke out in 1914, what happened was lots of Aboriginals rushed to join up. And I always tell people this, that the Australian Defence Force, the Australian Army, was the first equal opportunity employer of Indigenous Australians, because it was. All they saw was another soldier. They didn't care what colour you were, they didn't care what religion you were, all they saw was another soldier. In the Army, they were basically treated as an equal. He comes back to Australia, he goes back to community, the status quo goes back to the way it was. He doesn't get to march on Anzac Day, nobody sees him, skews the public perception of Indigenous service. People didn't think there were that many Indigenous Australians in the Defence Force. They didn't go and ask them, why did you join? What did you do? You know, why? What made you do this? We think there's a couple of reasons. Pay, $6 bob a day. You could send that home to your family. Unfortunately, a lot of that got taken before it got home to you. People would have thought...
If you're Aboriginal.
Yeah. If you didn't live in a community, you were all pretty good and you had your own bank account, that's fine. But if you lived in a community, when you sent your money home to your family, whatever Indigenous agency took that money and said, we'll dole it out. So you get these stories where guys come back, they've been fighting for 4 years, come back and find their wife's destitute, their kids have been taken away, and their wage...
Getting that money?
The government, state governments took the money, whoever the Indigenous agency was.
And when they landed back in Sydney, the white fellas got transported and the Aboriginals had to walk right over to South Australia. Walk.
Yeah.
They didn't get any compensation, no land back. Got sold to settlement land in some places, but they forget, the white man forgets what the Aboriginal done for Australia here.
Yeah.
They done a marvellous thing going fighting for that war.
And people talk about, oh, you know, it was the fight for Australia. No, actually, it probably was not. He's fighting for his piece of country and his people.
That's true.
And these men are one step from warriors. You know, they've been emasculated in a sense, taken from their traditional life. So they got something to prove. This is what Alfred would have looked like. He'd be wearing a uniform exactly the same as that. Light horseman, though, he may have been wearing plumes on his slouch hat. People tend to think that they're like cavalry. They're not. They're actually mounted infantry. They would ride their horses to where they were going to fight. They would then get off their horses, and they were in groups of 4. So the one man in the section of 4 would hold the horses. The other 3 then would attack as infantry. He was then shipped from Egypt to Gallipoli. He was lucky, in a sense. He wasn't on the peninsula for too long. I mean, a lot of the men that he would have joined in his unit would have been very sick. They'd have had dysentery. They were pretty badly knocked around. So, in a sense, he was lucky that he missed some of these kind of battles.
Do you feel that the story of Indigenous soldiers have been told enough, or is there more work to be done?
No, there's a lot more work to be done. There's a hell of a lot more work to be done. To get the Indigenous soldier out there to be recognised. Because they went and fought for the same reason, protect our country.
The quality, I thought it's exactly how I had it on my laptop. I just got an email then from Meryl and Peter showing me the wall that they're painting, so it's sealed, so the glue doesn't seep into the wall, and just basically means the mural's going to last longer. That looks awesome. So the height is going to be 3.4 metres, and then the width, and it probably comes out to about here, is nearly 15 metres. So it's like 4 by 15. So it's like about 50 square metres.
Hey, going?
How you going? What would you like?
Let's have a quick look at the menu and then... Those scones look good.
They have forgotten him, need him no more. He fought for his land in nearly every war. Tribal fights before his country was taken by Captain Cook, then went overseas to fight at Gallipoli and Tobruk. His medals he keeps hidden away from prying eyes. No one knows, no one sees the tears in his old black eyes. He's been outcast, just left by himself to die. Recognition at last. Black Anzac, hold your head high.